Have you ever wondered what drives some people to commit the most gruesome crimes? Today we delve into the chilling stories of the top 10 serial killers who shocked the world with their horrifying acts. Make sure to stay till the end to hear about the most terrifying killer of them all. Make sure to subscribe to the channel for more exciting videos. Let's get started. Number 10. The Corpse Collector. Anatoly Moskvin, a Russian historian, was known for robbing the graves of 29 young girls and transforming their corpses into dolls. When authorities discovered what he had done, they were horrified to find the mummified remains of these girls covered in masks, dressed in clothing, and even applied with makeup. But why did Moskvin do this? He claimed that he was keeping them warm, stating, "You left them in the cold. I took them home to keep them warm." Moskvin's fascination with cemeteries and biology led him down a dark path. He would dig up corpses, bring them home, and hold macabre parties to celebrate their birthdays. Despite sharing his home with his parents, they were completely unaware of his gruesome hobby, believing the large dolls were just part of his peculiar interests. Before his descent into this macabre obsession, Moskvin worked as a translator for military intelligence during the Soviet era and later as a historian. His dark secret was uncovered in 2011 when he confessed to 44 counts of grave abuse. He was sent to a mental institution, and despite discussions of releasing him in 2020, he remains in custody due to the severity of his actions. Number 9. The Soapy Killer. Leonardo Cianciulli, also known as the Soapy Killer, was an Italian woman born in 1894. By the 1930s, she had opened a soap shop in Correggio, Italy, but her life was far from ordinary. With a troubled past that included fraud charges and the loss of 13 out of 17 children, Leonardo became extremely superstitious. Desperate to protect her remaining children, she turned to human sacrifice after a fortune teller warned that her children would die unless she did so. In 1939, when her son announced he was joining the military, Leonardo lured women into her shop under the guise of fortune-telling. She drugged her victims with spiked wine, killed them with an axe, and then boiled their bodies in caustic soda. But her crimes didn't stop there. She used the fat from her victims to make soap, which she sold in her shop, and even baked cakes with their remains. Her horrific spree ended after her third victim, when a witness saw the victim entering her shop and never coming out. Leonardo confessed everything to the police and was subsequently arrested. Number 8. Food for workers. In 2018, a Moroccan woman in the United Arab Emirates took revenge on her boyfriend in the most gruesome way imaginable. After discovering he was planning to leave her for another woman, she murdered him in a fit of rage, chopped his body into pieces, and cooked him into a traditional Moroccan dish. She then served this dish to unsuspecting Pakistani construction workers. The horrifying act was discovered when the victim's brother found a tooth in the woman's blender. DNA tests confirmed it belonged to the boyfriend, leading to her arrest. She confessed to the crime and was sent to a mental hospital. Number 7. Ed Gein's Furniture of Horror. Ed Gein, a name synonymous with horror, was known for turning his victims' remains into grotesque pieces of furniture. When authorities raided his house in the 1950s, they found lampshades and chairs made from human skin, masks crafted from people's faces, and even a belt made from human nipples. Gein's obsession with his deceased mother seemed to trigger his descent into madness. Between 1954 and 1957, Ed targeted local women and even dug up graves to use the bodies in his grisly arts and crafts projects. His gruesome activities inspired the character Buffalo Bill in the movie Silence of the Lambs. Gein was later found guilty of murder and deemed criminally insane, spending the rest of his life in custody until his death in 1984. Number 6. Old Lady Killer. Juana Barraza Samperio, known as the Little Old Lady Killer, is one of Mexico's most notorious serial killers. Spending her days selling popcorn and wrestling, she also hunted elderly women driven by a deep-seated trauma from her own childhood. Between the 1990s and 2006, she murdered nearly 50 women in Mexico City. Juana was finally caught when a neighbor saw her leaving the scene of a crime. Convicted of 17 murders, she received a sentence of 759 years. Her actions were driven by a psychopathic belief that she was helping society by eliminating elderly women. Her tragic past, where she was traded to dangerous men by her mother, seemed to fuel her rage against older women. Number 5. Serial killing Santa Bruce MacArthur. Bruce MacArthur was a seemingly jovial man who played Santa Claus during the holidays and worked as a landscaper. However, behind his friendly facade was a cold-blooded killer. Between 2010 and 2017, MacArthur murdered 8 men, primarily targeting vulnerable individuals in Toronto's gay community. Using his job as a landscaper, MacArthur buried his victims in his clients' gardens. His chilling method of killing involved strangulation, followed by posing his victims in eerie photo shoots. When he was finally caught, the police had to search 75 properties for human remains. MacArthur's double life as a landscaper and serial killer shocked everyone who knew him. Number 4. The Torso Murders. From 1935 to 1938, Cleveland's Kingsbury Run was the scene of a series of gruesome murders. The Mad Butcher of Kingsbury Run targeted the city's most vulnerable, leaving behind only the torsos of his victims. Most of the 12 to 13 victims were unhoused or sex workers, making their disappearances harder to trace. The killer was never caught, and the whereabouts of the victims' heads and limbs remain a mystery to this day. Even after 80 years, the torso murders are considered one of Cleveland's most horrifying unsolved crimes. Number 3. The Bone Collector. In Mexico, authorities uncovered a chilling scene when they found approximately 3,787 bone fragments belonging to at least 17 different victims. The killer, whose identity remains undisclosed, was a bone collector with a penchant for dismembering his victims and hiding the pieces throughout his home. This gruesome discovery was made while investigating the murder of a 34-year-old woman. The police found not only bone fragments but also photographs, jewelry, and even videotapes of the killer in action. The true extent of his crimes is still being uncovered as authorities work to identify all the victims. Number 2. Human burgers. Joe Metheny was a cannibalistic killer who turned his victims into burgers. Arrested in Baltimore in 1996, Metheny confessed to killing at least 10 people. Shockingly, he admitted to mixing their flesh with pork or beef and serving it to unsuspecting customers at his burger stand. Despite his heinous acts, Metheny's name isn't as widely known as other infamous killers. He received multiple life sentences and expressed regret only for not being able to kill his ex-girlfriend and her new partner. His gruesome acts remain some of the most disturbing in American history. Number 1. Boyfriend Stu. Katherine Knight, the first Australian woman to receive a life sentence without parole, committed one of the most horrifying murders imaginable. After a volatile relationship filled with abuse and violence, Knight killed her boyfriend John Price and then cooked his remains into a stew with vegetables and gravy. Knight's violent tendencies escalated over the years, culminating in this gruesome act in 2000. After the murder, she planned to serve the dish to Price's children. When police arrived, they found Katherine with the remains of her boyfriend and the horrifying meal she had prepared. She claimed to have no memory of the crime, but the evidence was undeniable. These are just a few of the most horrifying serial killers in history, each with their own terrifying stories. Which one shocked you the most? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more chilling tales from the dark side of humanity.